Hello and welcome on this very gloomy day in Richmond, Virginia to our weekly CELA webinars. We're going to, as always, give a few minutes for people to join and then we'll get started on the pressing questions that you all have on immigration. So I hope you all enjoyed the little sunshine, at least we had on the West Coast over the weekend. And those days, it helps you kind of deal with and appreciate the days that like we're having today. So let's give it a few minutes and then we will get started. For those who have joined us before, welcome back. For those who are new, welcome to our webinar. I know that there are some that have found these webinars to be really helpful, and that's our goal, is to make sure that we provide guidance and clarity to all those with pressing questions. So we'll give it just a second because I still see people are joining, and then we'll get started. As usual, I want to remind everyone that we'll do our Q&A at the end. Please don't ask questions in the chat box. Pose your questions in the Q&A box, so that way we can get to all of them and make sure that everyone's concerns are addressed. So, without any further delay, let's get started. And I would be remiss if I didn't first point out that we will have a new president come 2021. And so January 20th, 2021. Okay. There we go. January 20th, 2021, we'll have a new president, and a lot of these restrictions that we see will get rolled back. So it was a good day, Saturday. Before I get started, as I've always said, I love connecting with you guys, and we've got a number of different ways in which we can connect: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, of course, our Telegram group, and I'll have some information about that if you are not aware about it. YouTube videos that we continually strive to provide, helpful information about the latest changes, adjudication trends that are not just, based on the change in rules, but there's a chock full of information on issues related to, the common problems with RFEs on H-1Bs, or how to draft your PERM for a successful job description. So please make sure you connect with us on that. Here are the video recordings of some of them. I didn't realize they put, yes, a couple of weeks ago, I was very honored to be selected as Woman of the Year by the Metro Business League. The theme this year was resilience. And I think any woman or any person that has a business has to show some resilience. And so if you want to see my speech, then you can check into that. But like I said, we have everything from what to do about Dropbox and how to address that, to qualifications on green cards, visa bulletin issues, CSPA questions that you may have. So check out our YouTube videos, comment, and please share with your friends. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about putting things in context, the Biden-Obama legacies, and then modernization and protections, some of the priorities that we think will get struck down that President Trump has put forth, and what we expect, going forward, and some adjudication trends and updates. So let's get started. The Biden-Obama legacies. So he was known, President Obama, as the Deporter-in-chief. And he instituted large mass deportation. I think that was in the context of, if you want to get immigration reform passed, a lot of politicians make the mistake of saying, oh, they don't talk about border security. And so I think he thought that by doing this, it would allow or provide a way in which we could get some immigration reform passed. Because to tell you this, since forever, it has been a bipartisan issue for immigration reform. Now, we saw that, in the earlier years when the Senate was primarily a Democratic Senate, they passed an immigration reform bill, not just for those who are here illegally, but it even addressed, backlogs and other things. And then what happened was the House was primarily Republican. So Speaker Boehner would not even allow a vote in the House because he knew that if he allowed the vote, it would pass. And he didn't want it to get passed. And so I got an opportunity during that time. I was having dinner. It was supposed to be a romantic dinner with my husband in DC, and Speaker Boehner walked in. And my husband pleaded with me. He said, let it go. Don't say anything to him. But I said, I think the universe brought him here today for a reason. And I wasn't going to bother him while he was eating, but if he started answering questions, I was going to talk to him. So I walked up to him and he looked at me and he said, I don't want a picture. And I said, well, I don't want a picture with you either. But I do want to tell you that this is a democracy, so you should allow our representatives to be able to vote on the Senate bill. And by stopping that, you are hindering the core processes of our republic. So, let's see how this plays out. But removal proceedings were prioritized, the retention of the EB1, EB2. And remember, during that time, President Obama also clarified to try to reduce the number of L1B denials, clarifications on what constitutes specialized knowledge. So there was some good and some bad. They clarified in 2017 the retention of the priority date, so a lot of the benefits that you're seeing now were instituted during that period. There are some unintentional consequences of some of the things that they put forth, which is like the ability for the EAD to have the same benefits as the 240-day rule. Once you file, you're able to continue working. But that only applied to a few EADs. Prior to that, if your EAD had been pending for 90 days, you could go to the local office and get a temporary work authorization. But because of the rule that they put forth, you couldn't do that anymore. So, like I said, some unintended consequences. They expanded the H-1B cap exempt entities, which have since been denied. And that really helped a lot of universities that were able to leverage entrepreneurship by using, the expanded definition, whistleblower protections, and so forth. So it was, the 2017 memo really clarified a lot of the ambiguities of, previous immigration protections. And a lot of that is, believe it or not, what you have been able to leverage right now. And, the STEM OPT and the work authorization for H-1B spouses. So what were the Trump priorities? I think we know fully well what their priorities were. I think since the pandemic, we have seen an onslaught of a number of different, regulations and directives by the USCIS. There was the initial Muslim ban, border wall funding, family separation, and it all was founded on Buy America and Hire America. And I have used that in the RFEs that we have responded to say, this particular immigration benefit really does support Hire America and Buy America, because for every H-1B worker, you've got 3 US citizen jobs that are supported by it. And that makes sense, right? If you think about like, what is it, .com specialties, there are other types of IT specializations that support some of the work that they do. So that's just some of the issues. But, you know, some of the things that you don't see that is not written about in most of the publications is they did away with deference to previously approved petitions. They expanded the deference that adjudicators could use to deny petitions. And those are not some of the things that you really hear about. You know, of course, about the H-1B, the proclamation that restricted entry, the H-1B wage issue, and the new restrictions that will be coming up in December. The public charge rule, my head has been spinning on, yes, submit the I-944. No, don't submit the I-944. Yes, submit the I-944. So we'll have to see how that plays out. The rule that is going to be effective December 2020, as we've talked about previously in great detail, narrows the definition of specialty occupation, limits the period that you can get an H-1B approval for third-party workplace, redefines the employee-employer relationship, and allows for greater inspections and monitoring. And as I've stated before, that is part and parcel because of all the federal court decisions that have addressed these very issues. And recently I used that in an RFE when they were trying to state that a H-1B position was not a specialty occupation because the OOH stated that the person working in that particular position could have a computer science degree or an engineering degree, but didn't outline a specific engineering degree. So aside from all the other arguments that we put forth, which clearly stated that the OOH was created a long time ago and that you know, it was not relevant to what is happening now, and the adjudicator's field manual tells adjudicators that they have to use that as a resource, but they have to look at it in context because of, you know, innovation. There's going to be changes in the workplace. But I also said to them in my response, hey, if it had to be a specific degree, then you wouldn't have to amend the definition that is going to be effective in December. And the mere fact that you're amending the definition to make it more narrow provides that this petition that was filed prior to the effective date should not be put to that same standard. So trying to use their words against them. So it's effective December 7th. And there's a lot of lawsuits that are, you know, been filed against not only the wages, but against this rule. We will have to see how this plays out, but it will only be temporary because as soon as the new administration is sworn in, all these proclamations will be null and void. They've also put forth a mandate stating that the selection of H-1Bs would be based on wage. And that's not something that the new administration is going to support because that really hurts universities and, you know, hurts the ability for doctors to be working in rural areas. So we know that that particular rule will not be instituted. So some of the things that we suspect is, you know, a lot of the obvious, the ending of family separation, detention, you know, the travel bans, the public charge issue, the National Emergency Fund for building the wall, protecting DACA, modernizing our immigration systems. And I'm trying to write and put together some suggestions for the next administration in terms of what are the things that the real life people are dealing with. And so let's hope. I think things can only get better, right? They can't get worse. And so I think that the Biden administration would, and one of the things hopefully that will come out of this, and it all depends on 2 runoff races in Georgia. So if you've got US citizen friends in Georgia, tell them to go out and vote in these runoff races and support the Democratic candidate. Because if we can get 2 Democratic Senate seats, then you can get immigration reform passed, which would mean eliminating the backlog. So you could get your green card a lot sooner. So call your friends in Georgia, tell them to vote, and vote for the Democrat in the runoff elections. So I think, there's going to be an overhaul of the immigration system, and I think it'll work in our favor. So as we get to know more of these, we will keep you posted. That's why it's important to be connected to us on our various, social media venues. And they did one of the proposals that President Obama did through executive order was the entrepreneur rule. Now, the problem with that is the president cannot do visa allocation. Only Congress can do that. And so although the entrepreneur rule allowed for people to get temporary entry or stay in the US if they met certain guidelines, the problem was it didn't have any teeth, it didn't have a pathway to anything. So that's why it's really important that we get Congress aligned, and so we can get something passed. The November visa bulletin, as you know, we were waiting for that with bated breath. It didn't come in till the very end. I'm sure everyone was, but it gives us more opportunity to file, and I think we can see similar kind of movement maybe in December, because we're not going to have as many filings in November as it is for December. So if you've been on the bench trying to figure out whether you should downgrade, I think you should, because if those 2 runoff races in January do go Democrat, if you've got an adjustment pending, then you're ahead of the mark in terms of having your petition and application and processing. So if the numbers, if they do amend how we allocate visa numbers, those that are in the queue are going to get allocated first. Remember, any change to the allocation, it's not going to be that countries like India and China are going to be not have any backlog ever. It's just going to be for a temporary period. The backlogs, just because of sheer volume, will catch up. So strategically, it's a good idea to make sure your application is in the pipeline. Yes, the public charge rule, like I said, my head spun. It was vacated for 1 day, but then an appellate, because it goes through the federal court system, federal district judge, then federal appellate court, and the appellate court expanded it. And then the blank space policy that you've got to write NA or none, that they could reject the form, which I think is just another way in trying to make sure that they have the ability to deny. Like I said, please don't I'm just looking at something in the chat. But please send your questions to the Q&A, which is, like I said, a better format. There's some questions with our social networks. Why are there inconsistencies? Initially, the Texas Service Center had a difficult time in, how they were receiving cases and sending out receipt notices. So you'll notice that those people who filed earlier are probably not getting the receipt notices, and the people that filed later. But as I've told you earlier, you can always check the back of the check that's been cashed, if it's been cashed, because even if you don't have a receipt notice, the receipt number will be written on there. In order for portability, you have to have an approved I-140 and your I-45 has to be pending for 180 days. If it's not, you can leverage your priority date, but you've got to go through the process again. So you have to work for the whole 180 days if you want to leverage portability. Next Wednesday, we'll have our immigration webinar again. So if you have any questions that you want answered, and please email us at info@cellolaw.com. We'd be happy to address any of the topics that you want to talk about. I mean, it can be anywhere from trying to understand. I was explaining to someone yesterday about how there's a parallel path between I-140s and 485s. And although they're parallel, they're not interconnected as you would think. So if that's something you'd like explained, or the PERM process or H-1B specialty occupation, please let us know. If you have not joined our Cella Chats forum, please do so. I'm sure Kara will send out in chat a link that you can join. It is one in which we constantly engage with the individuals, and hopefully this week, now that we're over all the major filings, I can be more engaged in that as well. So I love hearing from you. I love connecting with you on our Cella Chat. And like I said, we created it as clarity for hum. For hum means for us. So it's a forum, but it's for hum, kind of a play on words. And so please join that. And like I said, Kara will send out the link shortly so you all can have it. And different ways to connect with us. Like I said, I enjoy connecting with you in the various venues. So it would be great to hear about your success stories and to honor different ways in which you connect. There's LinkedIn, there's Twitter. They just put up the links to all our social media, so please sign up. You can sign up for our mailing list and make sure your questions are on the Q&A. We're not going to entertain them on chat. Look at our previous recordings if you want to get some clarity on some issues in great detail. We're happy to subscribe to it, share it with your friends, comment if you like the content, or give me some suggestions if there's some changes that you would like to see. And if you, for some reason, are not able to get your questions answered today, email us at info@cellolaw. That is info@cellolaw.com. And now I am going to invite our moderator to address the Q&A.
Hi, good afternoon. How's everybody? This is Shaker. Thanks for the opportunity. Let's go with the flow. First question is Vijay Somisetti. From all the things I'm reading about Biden administration, their priorities seem to be about paths to citizenship for illegal immigrants. They're not even remotely talking about helping legal employment-based immigration. I don't understand how Biden administration is good for people like me who are in EB immigration and why you are not supporting Biden administration.
Okay. First of all, you are incorrect. It was 2017. It was the Obama's overhaul in a lot of the H-1B and I-140 process that allows you to retain priority dates, even if your employer withdraws your application, that allows you to get 3 years extension, even if the employer withdraws your I-140. So these are protections that a lot of you have been using right now to file your adjustment. It is not because they're not talking about it. It is what the news people want to talk about. You have to understand that there is a difference between the two. News organizations want those things that they deem to be sensationalized and will get a lot of reaction. Business immigration doesn't, because there's no opposition to it, whereas illegal immigration does. So you hear about it more, but that doesn't mean that there are not very clear changes that they're going to be making to backlog issues.
All right. For sure. Ashwin is asking, will there be any changes for EB mandatory interviews introduced by the current administration? Are there any chances that I-485 interview will be waived?
Well, you know, we've been seeing even now with this administration, just because of COVID and the limitation of resources, that a lot of interviews have been waived for a lot of our business clients already. So we suspect that because of not wanting to overburden USCIS offices, that where it's a clear case that the adjustment should be granted, that the interviews would be waived.
All right. Once again, just want to remind, please post your question in Q&A. I got somebody posting on the chat. And don't post it again on Q&A. If you post it on the chat, you know, I will take that question. But just a friendly reminder to post it on the Q&A. It just makes it easy to track and answer it. Prem Pathak is asking you, what is the chance Biden administration reward the FB spillover EB already received? I'm not sure what that FB.
Oh, the family-based spillover that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty heavy-duty acronyms, you guys.
Yeah.
Be impressed.
That they, you know, they're not. If anything, you know, you're going to get a allocation of how the visa bulletin is addressed, so that you have to have two things. So Rand Paul actually had a very good bill that he was trying to introduce, and he's a libertarian, and it was supported by both Democrats and Republicans in the Senate, where not only do we get to use unused numbers that other countries have not used, but they would not count the dependents. Right now, dependents are counted against a visa allocation, so dependents would not be counted. Children that were of a certain age would be protected even if they age out, expanding the CSBA. It would give, I mean, it had a number of really positive pro-business, you know, initiatives. So I think we'll see an expansion of that. We certainly will not see a reduction.
Okay. Let's go to Mr. AK, or I don't know who Mr. or Mrs., but please help with the quick question. My previous employer filed a downgrade upon my request and told to join him ASAP to address ability to pay issue that may come. Should I join immediately, or can I join him in next 6 months, considering the 140 processing time?
Well, you know, the ability to pay issue has to be from the date of filing till the green card is approved. So he does have some, and one way you can show ability to pay is by paying the employee. That may help with whenever you join, but from the time you last worked for him till the time of the filing, they still have to show ability to pay. And if you were no longer working for them, they'd have to show it through either the net income on their tax returns or the net current assets.
All right. Next question is from an anonymous. Are there any Indian groups or Telugu organizations that are active with helping in election or voting feel like there shall be some help in Georgia. Are there any lobbying groups on behalf of us working with Democrats regarding the bill's S386, 7% country quota elimination?
Right. So that is, I'm trying to remember his name. There are two bills that are out there to address this. Everyone focuses on that bill. I don't like that bill as much. It doesn't give you as many protections. Look at the Rand Paul bill. The Rand Paul bill really gives you a lot more protections, and that's what we should be supporting. And so take a look at that. The other thing is, I don't know of any organizations. I know that I have been, Shaker and I are part of API 100, which is a group that does try to facilitate policy. And so if I do learn of any ways, you know, that folks can help get this passed, we'll definitely post it in the Telegram group so that, you know, you can call your friends that happen to be in Georgia that are eligible to vote and make them understand how important this is, because people who came here 20 years ago, it was fairly easy. I remember one time I was representing a bank and adjustments were approved in 3 months. It was not this much of a backlog. And so this is pretty, they don't understand, and you've got to make them understand why it's so significant to have a Senate, because it affects all your lives. And it is a very different time now. Because, you know, everyone will tell you, oh, back in the day, I did this. Well, back in the day, it wasn't that hard. It is now. And that's why it's a very important issue. That and a whole bunch of other things. I mean, healthcare, and, you know, it's not just about the immigration, but because this is an immigration webinar, I'm talking about it. But there are many reasons why we should be supporting this.
Yeah, there are a lot of Facebook groups out there, you know, Metro Atlanta and all kinds of other Georgia, you know, Facebook groups and other groups. So I think I'm pretty sure most of you have some friends and family in the Georgia area, Metro Atlanta, where population is more. So good idea.
Hey, and if you're interested, let's do another Telegram group just with trying to get folks motivated and working in trying to get the elections in Georgia positive. So if you're interested in that, let me know. And I'd be happy to help spearhead that.
Okay. Jay Agnihotri says, hello, Ms. Chawla. Thank you for your guidance and taking my question. It pertains to EB backlog for final action dates in particular. 130,000 or so GC visa numbers for EB 145s came about recently because family-based visa were not processed due to COVID. Is it possible for the Biden administration to reallocate some of the 130,000 visa numbers for family-based again?
Well, they wouldn't be able to, it wouldn't affect it. It wouldn't affect retroactively. They may eliminate the ban. Remember, the ban is only up till the end of December, and the Trump administration said that they may extend it. Even if they do, January 20th, that's one of the first things that he's going to do is eliminate all these proclamations. So down the road, it may affect it, because then you'll have the family-based petitions that will be filed, which is, again, why it's important to have a long-term solution. And we can only do that through Congress. Congress, it's the only way in which you have to have, when there was a Democratic House, Mitch McConnell is not letting any of these bills come to the floor. Even his own bill, Rand Paul bill, that is by a libertarian, very close to Mitch McConnell, he's not letting that, you know, go through. So we have to have a change in Washington. So the only way we're going to be able to get real immigration reform is if we've got a Democratic House, and we've got a Democratic Senate, and we've got a Democratic president.
All right. Sagar Kulkarni is asking, I have an EB2 approved priority date 2014. I'm downgrading this month using a new I-140 petition in EB3. My question is, if USCIS is going to question the downgrade for the same employer, since the original PERM list as the job requires a master's degree, what are your thoughts on this? Thank
Yeah,
you.
so EB3, and if you look at, I think it was one of our earlier October webinars. So go on YouTube and look at that. I talk about that specifically. And I talk about how the regulations provide that you can file a new petition. The EB3, the minimum qualification needs to be at least a bachelor's degree, or for it to be qualified as an EB3 professional. That doesn't mean that it has to be only a bachelor's degree. That means at a minimum, it can be greater than a bachelor's degree. And a lot of times people file both for EB2 and EB3 at the same time. So this has been customary for years. So I don't think that would be the sole issue that would be a problem.
All right. Lisa Dontum Setti is asking, does Trump's H-1B wage rule executive order, which took effect on October 8, 2020, does that still apply? Can you please give details about that change? When would this executive order be removed?
Right. So you've got the election that we're all excited about, or should be excited about. But that president is not going to be sworn in until January 20th, 2021. So this is what they typically term as the outgoing president's lame duck season. So this is the time in which, really he has some effect, but if there's anything that he puts forth, the new president would be able to revoke in January after he's sworn in. So whatever is in effect now, we have to navigate through that till January 20th. After that, we'll be able to address it. So to your question, yes, the wage regulations do apply. And yes, the H-1B, the new rules will apply come December 7th, if they're not challenged. There's a lot of lawsuits that are also in play. So connect with us on social media or join our Telegram group where we will post and keep you abreast of any actions by a federal court to curtail any of these rules.
All right. Mohan Kanala is asking, thanks, Ms. Chawla. I have my priority date as November 2003, and I filed my 485 in July 2020, and now have an EAD. Having priority dates so backwards, do I have any advantage of getting my green card early compared to others?
Yeah, I mean, it's based on, the allocations are based on priority dates. And like I said, even if, let's say we get 2 additional senators that are Democrat, and there's a ton of studies on this, so I'm not just saying this from my perspective. Eventually, even if we do away with the backlogs by using allocation per country allocations for unused immigrant visas, and we don't count spouse and kids, at some point it's going to be backlogged again because of the sheer number. So those that are in the process, that's who's going to benefit. So if you've got friends out there or you haven't initiated the PERM process, do that now. Do that now so that you're not going to be behind the 8 ball once if and when the backlogs become eliminated.
Okay. Aman is asking, hello, Ms. Chawla, you've been my immigration attorney from the beginning of my case, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for everything. I have an approved I-140 under EB2 category from previous employer with a priority date November 2017. I currently work for a different employer under H-1B. I believe we need to file PERM again with the new employer. My question is, should I wait for it, or is it a good time to start that process?
It is. It's a good time to start because you get to leverage your previous priority date. And so you can do it now. You can process it in such a way in which you can file at the I-140 stage both an EB3 and an EB2. And that way you have both of them, and when whatever comes current first, you can use that. So you go through the one PERM. You will have to file two separate I-140 petitions, but if you file them together, you can file them under premium processing. So that is, a strategic tip from me to you. And thank you for trusting in us for so long. We really appreciate that.
All right, thank you, Aman. Anonymous attendee next is asking, currently I'm working on H-1B from home as a result of COVID restrictions. My office is located in Durham, North Carolina, and I live in Morrisville, North Carolina. The commuting distance is about 10 miles from my home to my workplace. In this case, do I need an amendment for my H-1B? And
No.
it says there's a note, my office is in Durham MSA, while my home in Morrisville comes under Raleigh, Cary Raleigh MSA, but it is within commuting distance.
Right.
Does the USCIS look at the MSA or the larger PMSA, or is commuting distance good enough to not file an H-1B amendment?
Right. So you don't have to file an H-1B amendment if it is within the MSA or it is within commuting distance. And I'm very familiar with the Raleigh-Durham area, and I think it is very normal to have, if your office is in Durham, to commute from Morrisville. So there's some postings that you have to do internally in your house, which is absurd, but you do. And we've got a webinar that talks about, I think it was one that came out fairly early, I would say around May, that talks about what you have to do if you're working from home. But there shouldn't be a problem. You don't need to file a new amended petition.
Okay. Once again, I'd like to request folks to put your question in the Q&A and not in the chat, please. Next one is anonymous attendee. Could you please clarify, just wondering what the next step would be. For example, my priority date is March 2014 on EB2. EB2 to EB3 downgrade applications, 140, 485, 765, 131 approved. When will I be able to get GC?
Well, in order to get a green card application, your priority dates have to be current. Remember, they're allowing filing dates based on filing dates, which are not priority dates. So that's A. And B, it depends on what the backlog is. We're seeing, I think it's been, from the date the priority date is current, usually it's taking between 6 to 8 months for the entire permanent resident process to be completed, where you get your green card.
Is that it?
Yep.
Okay. Next one is another anonymous attendee. Thank you for all your efforts for immigration community. Is there any lawsuit for specialty occupation rule?
Yes, and I think there'll be, one of the things that I did recently is do a deep dive. So, and I talked about this on our last program. Federal agencies, there was a federal Supreme Court case that was decided last year called Kaiser versus, I think it's Wilkes. And Kaiser outlines what agencies can do through rulemaking. One of the things that historically so they said, if a term is the term for an agency to provide clarification and to get deference, the term has to be ambiguous. Here, specialty, there's two things. There's specialty occupation and there's specialized knowledge. So specialized knowledge defines knowledge within a specific discipline, which is very different from a specific degree. And I went back and I looked at the congressional record, and Congress thought about that, and they didn't want it to be a degree. They said it could be a discipline or a series of disciplines. And so I think on challenge, it would be invalidated because they can't, what an agency cannot do is legislate. And that is what effectively they're doing. There's a number of other problems with the December 7th new rules, but on the issue of specialty knowledge, that's one of the challenges. So even if you're filing something after December 7th and you get it, you probably won't get an RFE because by the time it gets, I wouldn't file it in premium. So if you have to file in December, file it regular. By the time it is reviewed after January 20th, you can upgrade. You can always upgrade to premium later, but wait till the wait till that rule gets invalidated, or if a court stops it between now and then.
Okay. Next one is also from an anonymous attendee. I have an EB2 approved prior to 2014. I'm downgrading this month using a new I-140 in EB3. Question if USCIS is going to question the downgrade. I think the person has put it again. So it's the same question.
Yeah, and I answered that earlier. No, they won't. They won't question the downgrade within itself.
Yeah.
But remember, you have to still demonstrate that you meet the requirements of the I-140, and the employer still has to demonstrate ability to pay. But the mere fact that you're doing a downgrade is not a basis for a denial.
Yeah. We'll get to all the questions, ladies and gentlemen. So please don't post it again because that just confuses me. I normally don't get confused, but sometimes I do, depending on the time of the day. Just kidding. Nirup Paduchuru says, hi, any idea on when the H-1B visa interviews will be back? Currently in India, stuck.
Yeah, there are two ways in which you can overcome that. Right now, until we get a handle on the pandemic, that's going to be a problem anywhere. And so if you're eligible for Dropbox, and as you saw at the beginning of this webinar, we have a YouTube video that talks about either Dropbox or getting an emergency visa. So you can utilize either one of those if you're eligible, and that may be the way in which you can, get a visa. We've been successful helping companies get visa interviews based on emergency. But those are the two mechanisms for right now that you'd have to use.
All right, next question is from, it says VEL, V-E-L. So what is the status on the injunction case on fees increase for I-485 filing in October 2020? Is I-944 mandatory or non-mandatory? If it
is mandatory. It was enjoined, and then an appellate court stayed the district court's decision. So you do still have to file an I-944. The fee increase has not been overcome, so it's still enjoined.
So I think, will the USCI return the fees for those filed I-485 in early October?
No, they will not. Whatever the fee was at the time of filing is what governs.
Can never get back money from the government.
No.
I mean, exceptions are always there. Anonymous attendee, what are the chances of, I think there's a follow-up question from the gentleman who asked, what are the chances of Bill S-386 passing in this lame duck session?
Probably not very high.
Next one is,
and the reason why I made the face is everyone's obsessed with that. I'm trying to remember his name. Was it Leahy? Is it Leahy? I can't remember, but Dick Durbin. It's Dick Durbin's bill. And I, for one, like Rand Paul's bill better. Dick Durbin's bill is like a Band-Aid. Rand Paul's bill is a revamp. So, you don't want to put a Band-Aid on a problem. You want to make sure that the problem's addressed at many levels, especially with kids. And so that's why I like the Rand Paul bill better.
All right. Next, another anonymous attendee. When are the sibling-sponsored visa processing going to restart? I am inquiring for my parents who are in India and had their visa interview in June, which got canceled due to COVID.
Mhm. Well, they've got till the end of the year, and the COVID pandemic has not gotten better. So I think it's going to be after January that we see any change, January 20th.
Okay.
And then Shaker, today I have to stop at 1 because I have a doctor's appointment.
Okay. So again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if we can't get your question answered, please submit your question, to info@shalalaw.com, and be glad to answer.
Right. Or like I said, you can post it on our Telegram. I'll be on that later this afternoon after my doctor's appointment, so I'll try to answer some questions there.
Next one is from anonymous attendee. Will master's degree requirement in PERM cause an issue for downgrading to EB3? I think that was already answered.
No, and the answer is no.
The answer is no. Jay Agnihotri says, I think this question was just answered by someone else's question. What do you think the immigration bills, whether it is Senator Mike Lee's S-386 or Rand Paul bill, would come up again? Should we expect this, say, in the first 100 days?
It depends on the January election. If we can get a Senate majority, then we can get bills passed, whether it's relief for the pandemic for businesses, whether it's healthcare, whether it's immigration. Mitch McConnell has been sitting on, God knows, hundreds of bills, and we just need to get him out as leader of the Senate if we want to get anything done.
Yeah. Okay. KG is asking, thanks a lot for helping us. Can we stay in India for 2 to 3 years after approval of advanced parole and leave the US after 3 years, or is there any limit to stay outside US?
You cannot, as a permanent resident, stay outside the United States for more than 6 months without it impacting your ability to get citizenship. You can't, as a green card holder, stay greater than 1 year. Now, when you're in the adjustment process, there's going to be, of course, if you've got your advanced parole, there'll be biometrics, but there may be an interview. And you want to be in the United States when you get your card. You don't want to be outside the US. And then after that, of course, you'd have to adhere to the restrictions for permanent residencies.
Okay. Let's get the next one. Mr. Funny Kanteri is all over the place. He's on the chat and he's also here. I filed 485 on 1027 and filed H-1B extension on 1030. Still, I did not get 485 receipt. Any reason if I lost H-1B before 180 days of 485 receipt, will I get EAD without any issue?
Okay.
Let me read that question again. I filed.
Right. No, I see, because I think he posted it on chat as well, but go ahead and read it again.
Well, yeah. Any reason if I lost denial, he says H-1B before 180 days of 485 receipt, will I get EAD without an issue? Will I stay legal? My employer will not file new one as company policy.
Well, remember when you file an H-1B, the process is either there is an RFE or it gets approved. It typically doesn't get denied outright. As long as you were in valid status at the time of filing the 485, the filing of the 485 gives you the status of an adjustee. So it's not a specific status, because on an H-1B, you've got a specific H-1B status. On the 485, you're in a lawful status. But I always tell people it's good to have a safety net. So if you can file try to get that H-1B to be successful. I don't know why you would think it would get denied. Hopefully it won't get denied.
Sagar Kulkarni just wants to thank you for your the community appreciates your guidance. Thank you, ma'am, for your help.
We're happy to assist.
Kiran Mangalampalli. Hi, Lakshmi. Have a quick question. May I drop ball? Is master's degree required for H-1B visa extension?
No, I would. It's only if, not for an extension, no.
Okay. Mohan Kanala. Thanks, Ms. Challa. I have my 140 approved. I'm only left with 485 adjustment that is in process. So does November 2005 date put me at the forefront?
Yeah, it's from whenever you filed. So it gets processed. Remember, it has to be, your priority date has to be current, and they will look at, they will look at those that were in the line first.
Okay. Next one is Purna G is asking, will it be possible to remove country caps on employment-based GC process in Biden administration if both an House and Senate majority is in Democratic hands?
Yes, 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 yes.
All right. Madhu Rao is asking, I already sent an email. I'm just looking for employer with good financial who can sponsor green card consular processing. I have EB3 140 with December 2007 priority date, and I have project on hand. Can you help me there through your good contacts? Please reply to my email.
I don't do any type of, but Shaker has contacts with a bunch of companies. If you send us an email and mark it for Shaker's attention with your current resume, I'm sure he'd be happy to share that with the companies that he has contacts with.
Yeah, please, if any of you are interested, I'll try my best with my contacts. What I request is when you send your resume, in the body of the email, let me know, your top 3 areas that you're interested in, because a lot of people are changing, their positions, or, they can do this, they can do that. If you're a DBA, you can do networking and do this and all that. So just, make sure you tell me what, you are interested in. And if you already have a company in mind, just let me know that too, because if I have a contact in that company, I can reach, somebody in that company. So that would help. So a clear email with some, guidance for me would help. Thanks. I think we only have a couple of minutes, so I'm going to only get a couple of questions. So this one is from Sandeep Kaur. I don't know if she's still in India or not. Does U.S. consulate address 221G faster for people those went for emergency appointment?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
And Sandeep, you'll be hearing from me today. So
Prem Pathak is asking, what is the possibility of Biden administration considering any EB immigration reform independent of broader immigration reform?
Yeah, I
think we answered that, but
yeah, and I think it's going to be an immigration reform bill, and they're not going to piecemeal it. They're going to do it holistically, and so.
All right. Rajiv R. My PERM is approved on November 10th, and can I apply I-140, EB2 and 3 simultaneously with premium processing? At what time USCIS will ask us which application should be chosen? My priority date is June 27, 2011.
Right, so you can't file an I-140 485 by premium. You can only file I-140s by premium. And if you have a PERM for EB2, you can file the EB2 I-140 and the EB3 I-140 under premium processing if you file them together.
Okay. And this will be the last question, since we need to go. Skill Up Technologies. Help, please advise if you have a timeline to receive AP approval after I-145 filing done on 10/16/2020. I have applied on EB1. Thank you for all you do.
It's taking anywhere from 4 to 5 months now to get, you'll have a biometrics in between, and once the biometrics is done, then it will be, you will be issued the EAD AP.
So that's it. It's 1 o'clock. So appreciate everybody. And if your question was not answered, or if you have a follow-up question, please do send it to info@chalalaw.com. Be glad to send you a reply as soon as possible. Lakshmi?
Yes, and thank you again for joining. Like I said, if you found this to be helpful, share our information about our webinar with your friends and connect with us on the different social medias, and join us on the Telegram group. And I enjoy connecting with you every week. And if you've got any specific topics, let us know what you'd like covered next week. And stay safe. And until next week, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye all.
Bye.
Have a good appointment.